Australians get new con. Winners join hobby pantheon. Swedish gunboat league? Come on. I'm David Hood of the Diplomacy Broadcast Network, and this is Deadline, DBN's monthly news program. Dateline February 2024 for our feature story. How does one come out on top of a tournament or league event in the world of competitive diplomacy? And what does it take to turn a cool dip-related idea into a successful and well-regarded addition to our overall hobby? Let's find the answers to these questions later in the program as we visit with the most recent DipCon winner and the most recent recipient of our hobby's annual service award called the Ambassador of the Year. But first, a look at headlines from around the world of diplomacy. Let's start with the world of virtual face-to-face play. Australian hobbyist Peter McNamara has announced details of his new virtual tournament. He's calling it No Time Draws 2024. The event will take place April 27th and 28th and will feature virtual face-to-face diplomacy play, quote, the way the rulebook intended, end quote, without any fixed end time. You can play it in up to 2 of the 3 rounds scheduled across that weekend, with game times being at 1 o'clock on April 27th, 1700 hours on April 27th, and 0900 hours the next day on April 28th, all times being the UTC time zone. Another feature will be open draw votes at the end of each game. This virtual event will join the other 2 English language virtual tournaments held on a yearly basis, that being the Summer Classic and the Virtual Diplomacy Championship. This one adding yet another opportunity for diplomacy fans around the world to get their fix without leaving the comfort of their own homes. Stay tuned for additional details and registration information to be released by Peter in the near future. In face-to-face tournament news, the North American DipCon just finished its 56th running in conjunction with the 2024 Cascadia event in Vancouver, with Katie Gray of Arizona taking that top prize. She dominated the tournament nearly from the beginning, with 3 lone board tops results out of 3 rounds of play, the only player to pull that off. You'll hear more about this event from Katie's perspective in our Winner's Circle segment later in this broadcast. Coming in second was last year's Cascadia winner Riaz Varani of British Columbia, and in third, California player and DBN analyst Karthik Kaneth. This event featured 20 boards of diplomacy overall under the able direction of Chris Brand. The DBN coverage of DipCon is linked below. Also, in Australian face-to-face news, 2 tournaments are fast approaching, with the Melbourne Open happening the weekend of March 2nd and 3rd, and the Hung Parliament Handicap taking place April 12th through 15th in Canberra. Both events will take place in gaming venues. First, Fortress Melbourne, and then Good Games Canberra City. For more info, see the link below to the Australian Diplomacy Group on Facebook, as well as a registration form for the handicap. And then for North American face-to-face, the upcoming events include Whipping in San Francisco, March 23rd and 24th, with its registration form linked below, as well as DixieCon in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, May 20 and 24th, and its website is linked below. And of course, we can't forget that World DipCon 2024 will take place near Milan, Italy, the first weekend in June. We'll provide more information on that event on next month's Deadline. Whew. We've reported on Deadline many times in the last couple of years the ways in which diplomacy has been used in various forms for research on the subject of artificial intelligence. Now a call has been issued for competitive diplomacy players to join a university-based research study which uses Meta's AI agent Cicero to play blitz games against human players for games played through the end of 1907. Data will be collected from these players about their intentions, their veracity, and other aspects of the game, and to player-to-player relationships. Now, I want to tell you, this is a paid gig with a minimum fee as well as the chance for a performance bonus, all for playing a game you already love to begin with. So if you are interested, please reach out to diplomacylinguist@gmail.com and include in your email what experience you have playing the game in any of its formats on any of the major platforms. And now let's check in on the goings-on in European diplomacy. In this case, extended deadline play in the German language. The diplomacynetwork.com website is the place for German language play, and they've just announced the second running of their online championship tournament. Some games having already started, but you can still enter the event through the end of March by using the website link provided below. It's classic diplomacy being played with press and anonymously, with 24 hours per turn. Communication is in German using the in-game chat function. Each participant will be assigned 7 games during the calendar year 2024, all of which must be completed, but you can block off specific months in which you will not be assigned a game. For comparison purposes and for planning, in the 2023 event on the website, each game lasted an average of 32 days. Enter now and viel Glück. Every month, we like to report on the latest and greatest audio, video, or visual content from creators we call our DBN media partners. Let's start with the Diplomacy Dojo, a podcast produced by the well-known diplomacy personality known as Brother Board. In his latest episode, number 26, which dropped just a few days ago, he provides an introduction to diplomacy variants alongside prolific variant designer and former guest here on Deadline, David E. Cohen. They discuss why variants are popular, the different types of map and rule variants out there, the issues of play balance and stalemate lines, and other aspects of the variant world. From the world of print media, the February 2nd edition of the Diplomacy Briefing newsletter featured a pair of thoughtful articles about the outcome of this year's Top Board Championship contest for the Virtual Diplomacy League. The winner, Michalis Kamaritis, and third place finisher, Matthew Tatanchi, provide interesting comparisons and contrast in their reports from that epic game, and also provide insights to the readership, which frankly should be valuable to both newbies and to veterans alike. You can find links to both of these media partners in the show notes below. And you can find links to all of our media partners at the North American Diplomacy Federation website, thenadf.org. And now, in other news from the world of extended deadline diplomacy, a new event has been announced by Mal Arky, otherwise known as Malcolm Arkwright, which is called the Extended Deadline Grand Prix, or XDGP for short. This will be a 4-round event, with the first played on Backstabber starting in March, and the other 3 rounds rotating between Duplicity, PlayDip, and WebDip. Then there will be a championship round of qualifiers from the first 4 to determine the overall XDGP winner. For more information, Mal has created both a Discord server and a website called Arena to help promote and run the event. So links to both of those are provided below. There's also discussion about the XDGP on the Play Diplomacy Discord server, which has sort of taken the place of the now defunct Play Diplomacy forum. So a link to that server is also provided in the show notes. Let's cover the latest in virtual face-to-face leagues. The Tour of Britain Virtual League, run by Gary Sturley, has announced that its 2024 season will start with a game day on March the 9th. So sign up. In order to sign up, just navigate over to the Tour of Britain space on the VWDC Discord server. Also, there is now a new virtual league with games to be played in Spanish, organized through its own website, which I've linked below. There's also a link down there to the Spanish Virtual League's Discord server. Finally, the 7 Years War Virtual League completed its first 2 games in January, with one game played in English and the other in German. The first game ended at the end of 1906 with 3 players eliminated and England on 10 centers. Wait, eliminated 3 players and this is a European league? The second game ended in a more conventional manner as the cutoff turn for the league games fall 1907 was reached, with an FG tying for board top at 9 centers each. 2 more games of the 7 Years War were played recently in February, one being a massive Russian board top and the other a share top for Austria and France. As reported last month on Deadline, the 7 Years War is a virtual league to be played in English and in rotation, other languages such as Dutch, French, or German. If you want to join in the upcoming March game day, join the VWDC Discord server and then navigate to any of the general chat areas and ask for help. One of the 7 Years League folk will come and get you where you need to go. Hobby awards have been part of the fabric of the diplomacy scene for decades. Just a few years ago, the fine folks at the Diplomacy Briefing newsletter relaunched the Hobby Awards process to award the Ambassador of the Year for service to the hobby during a particular season, and also the Literati of the Year for the best writing of that calendar year. Committees were created and empowered to form lists of finalists to submit to the briefing's subscribers, who then vote to determine the winner. For 2023, the nominees for Ambassador were Stephen Agar of the UK for its publication of God Save the Zine and other projects, Australians Amby and Kaner for their Diplomacy Games podcast, and the eventual winner of the award, Nicholas Spencer of Tennessee, who formed the Olympus Diplomacy community. You'll see my interview with Nicholas in just a few minutes right here on this program. As for Literati of the Year, Saren Kwok of the UK has won for her highly creative Beatles-themed Champions Corner piece in the briefing, relating to her victory in the VWDC Summer Classic, with other hobby writing nominees having been Robert Schuppe, Malcolm Arkwright, Michalis Kamarites, and again, Stephen Agar. Congratulations to all the nominees and to our 2 winners. Finally, about a little variant league action. There is now a Swedish gunboat league being played as part of the esports platform called eSparven. According to organizers, the goal is to expose both gunboat and classic diplomacy to the Swedish gaming audience. There's also a plan to partner with the tournament staff at the upcoming GothCon event over Easter weekend in Gothenburg to promote diplomacy play in an attempt to restart the Swedish face-to-face hobby. Now, as longtime hobbyists may remember, GothCon itself hosted the 1997 World DipCon, back when the Swedish hobby was one of Europe's most active. The Gunboat League is scheduled to play every other week until May to end the spring season. And then if there's enough interest, the organizers plan to do a second season in the fall, and then possibly also a virtual face-to-face event. To join in on this fun, use the link provided below to join the eSparven platform, and then join its related diplomacy server from there. And now it's time for a segment of our show we call the Winner's Circle, in which we interview diplomacy hobby winners to find out what happened, why it happened, and just how it feels to reach the top of the diplomacy heap. Let's start off by having a conversation with New Mexico hobbyist Katie Gray about her recent victory at the 2024 North American Championships, held earlier in February near Vancouver, British Columbia. Hello, Katie, and welcome back to Deadline.
Hi, David. Thank you. I'm always happy to be here.
Sure. All right. Give us just a brief backstory on you and the game of diplomacy before we get into anything else.
I started playing diplomacy, I think about 5 years ago, just with some friends on WebDip. Didn't take it very seriously, but I started playing extended deadline games over there and sort of got hooked. And after a couple of years, right around the time when I was realizing that extended deadline was taking too much of my time and I didn't have the time for it anymore, some of my friends from WebDip convinced me to play virtual diplomacy. So I played a few tournaments in there, played a few league games, and then I went to my first face-to-face diplomacy tournament at Carnage in, 2022, I think.
It was 2021.
21.
I you there. Yep.
Okay.
I met you there. Which was awesome to meet people that we had just met, during the pandemic playing virtually.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, congratulations. You actually, that was a DipCon in 2021 that you went to, but here you go 2.5 years later and you've won a DipCon.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Has it sunk in yet that you are the reigning North American face-to-face champ?
I think so. I think so. I was thinking about this one for a long time before going, and I really wanted it. And I don't know. I'm really excited. I'm really happy about it. I also feel this sense of like relief. I think, like sort of accomplishment. I don't know. It's pretty exciting. I don't know if it'll fully set in ever, really, but I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, I'm excited for you.
Thanks.
You have won virtual tournaments before, but this is the first face-to-face tournament you've won, right?
Yeah, I haven't had the greatest face-to-face showing previously. I think I maybe got a couple best countries here and there. But yeah, this was by far my best performance. It's a good time to win it.
Well, yeah, definitely a good time to win it. Contrast that experience, successfully navigating a face-to-face event versus one that you play from your own home, a virtual event.
I think face-to-face events they're more tiring. When you're not playing diplomacy, there's a lot of socializing. You're trying to hang out with your friends. It just seems to go later and to just be more exhausting overall. You can't eat whenever you want to. I think like people get hungry and they get cranky when they play, and you start to lose focus. You're just tired and dehydrated and hungry. I think that's the biggest difference. It's just physically, it is kind of harder, I think, to play in person.
Yeah, I've told people before, it's a very physical sport, really.
It kind of is.
You play over a whole weekend. I mean, it's one thing to go to a pickup game, and play sort of a casual house game face to face. But going to an event over the weekend, it's a lot.
Yeah. Especially if you've got jet lag or anything.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not just once you get there; it's the travel itself can be sort of a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this year's Cascadia. You were the only player, I think, to finish each of their games with the most centers. In other words, a lone board topper. How did you make that happen?
I played the way that I always do, which I think is for the most part, pretty good alliance play, but I was a little more assertive this year or this tournament than I usually am. I remember my first game, I was Austria and Karthik was Italy, and we had a good alliance going and we were making progress. And I came to him at, I think, 1907, and I was just like, hey, Karthik, look, this alliance is going really well, but I think I'm playing a really good game here, and I think I deserve the top. Like my relationship with the German players, what was helping us cross the line, and I was just making more progress than him, and he was lending centers from me, and so I just told him like, look, I think I deserve this, and he agreed. And so I didn't have to stab him for it. I didn't have to like sneak my way into it. I was just pretty honest and open with him about it, and I think that sort of. I didn't do that explicitly in any of my other games, but I think that idea of, playing an alliance and doing what's best for us, but keeping, I wanted to win. I wanted to do what was best for me at the forefront. I think that helped me a lot.
And that can be a legitimate way to do this. Stick with the alliance, but convince them that you should be the one that comes out on top. That's really kudos to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I've never asked for that before. It's kind of weird, but it just felt like I needed to.
Well, sometimes people have to parlay an alliance like that into a shared board top. Obviously, there's been some debate about shared board tops in this tournament and other tournaments. Do you think that going for a shared board top in a tournament like this is sufficient if you're trying to get yourself set up for a tournament win?
I mean, the scoreboard said no. I don't know. I think it really depends, right? Because I think in my final game, looking back on the scores, I could have had a shared board top, like a shared 11, and I think it would have gotten me the points that I need. So it certainly depends on the situation. If you have enough good games, you could get away with that. I was just playing to try to maximize every round, and I think that even though I had a little bit more leeway in the end than I thought I did, I think that's the way to go in tournaments. I mean, you only get that shot. You can't go back and wish that you had negotiated yourself one more center, and that's how I went into it, and it worked out. I mean, I'm sure in plenty of tournaments there have been people who have gotten shared board tops and gotten the win, and of course it depends on the scoring system and all that kind of thing. But I think I only stabbed really in one of my games, but it still was the most cutthroat I've ever been in terms of like trying to get my points for myself, and I think that's why it worked out.
Well, it's certainly true that if you don't try to win, you're not likely to win. That is a tautology that is nevertheless quite true. All right, so let's try to put ourselves in your shoes on the Sunday round. You ended up besting second place finisher Riaz by a fairly decent margin, all things considered, but I'm not sure it really felt that way on Sunday. How did it feel to be racing against him and against Karthik and some others during that Sunday round?
You're right. It did not feel it did not feel safe at all. It was a fun game. I was in a really good alliance with two people who I wasn't entirely sure if I could trust. They're both the kind of players that will stab and will get scores themselves. It was Liam in Turkey and then Craig in Austria, and I like both of them a lot. Like, we had fun, but I never at any point was like, oh, these people are going to Care Bear with me to the end of this game. So I was maybe against my better judgment, putting a lot of faith in them. There was one turn where Liam, like, without discussing it with Craig or I, he got one more center than we had agreed he would. He just got another one from Italy or something. I honestly wasn't paying that much attention to the South when I was Russia. And he built a fleet in Ankara, and we were immediately taking a 10-minute pause so that people could check out of their hotel rooms. And I just sat there staring at the board thinking, this is it. Liam is stabbing me and he's ending my tournament. And like for 10 minutes, I was just staring at the board. And I think that 10 minutes would have been a good time to walk around and see how the other boards are doing, but I couldn't think about them. I could only focus on my own game. And I mean, that kind of thing just continued. People would kind of walk by and look at the boards, and, every once in a while you go see how, Karthik is doing and how this board is doing. But I mean, I certainly wasn't adding up points, and I was barely even keeping track of, if they were topping the board. I was just, okay, they're having a good game or not. So I had no idea what the scores were throughout that entire round. I had no idea where the other people in contention were and how they were doing. I was really just trying to focus on my own game because, I mean, that's the only thing I could control. I mean, even to the extent that you can control your own game,
Yeah, I'm basically like you when I've been in that situation. I have enough trouble trying to control my game. It's an all-consuming effort to control your own game.
Yeah.
And I've always thought hats off to people that really can figure out what everyone else is doing during the last round and know exactly how many points they need. Good for them. There is no way in Hades.
No, I don't. I don't do math that fast. I had the scoring calculator on my phone. I don't think I ever looked at it. I'm just looking at the position and trying to do what I can. And I guess in some ways, I could have gotten away without stabbing if I had known better. But I mean, it's the final round of the tournament, and those guys weren't going to hold it against me. So. It's okay.
Well, and Liam, the concern that Liam Stokes was going to go after you and try to maximize his own score is a totally legitimate concern.
Yeah, because why not? He has that right, and I think he was very close to getting best Turkey out of it. So those are things people play for. So yeah, you never know.
Well, particularly in the last round of a tournament, unless someone is in contention to win or do really well, what are their motivations? And trying to figure out what those are and incorporate that into your diplomacy is part of the game, of course.
Right.
All right. Well, let's talk about the tournament experience a little more generally, just to give people a sense of what it was like to be there. Tell us some folk that you really enjoyed meeting or playing with over the weekend at Cascadia.
The first person I have to say I enjoyed meeting was a woman named Ruby. This was her first tournament. Her first time ever playing diplomacy, her very first game was that first game I played with Karthik, and she was France, and she outguessed him like 6 out of 7 years. It was amazing. It was
we all watched it on the stream.
Watched it, but if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. It's so funny. It was so great to see. She told me afterwards, or she told someone, I heard that she had like a psychological profile of him developed, and that's how she did it, because she didn't have the tactics experience, but she was like, I know this player, and it was great, and that was really fun. And you love to see new people coming to tournaments and doing well and just kind of fitting in, and I think that was really great. So she was, I think, my favorite person that I met. But there were a lot of Canadians there that were local players, and it was great to meet them. I made a joke on my first board. There were a couple Canadians on it, and I was like, well, it's going to be a friendly board. And it really was. I don't, stereotypes aside, it was really a good group of people. And, it's really always nice to see people. I mean, you've got people like Miletsky who will go just to hang out with people, and I'm not quite there yet. But there's a lot of great people in this hobby, and yeah, seeing people and hanging out off the board is almost as much fun. Sometimes it's more fun if your games are not going well.
Well, that's certainly true. All right, there'll be people watching this who have never traveled to a face-to-face event. Give us a sense of what those social interactions outside the game look like when you're at an event like this.
I mean, you've got the pre game socials, the dinners, the going out for drinks, the playing board games in the game room. I think those are some of my favorites because it's like before the tournament starts, you're not really nervous, you're not really stressed, you're not thinking about what you could have done better last game. Those are a lot of fun. Sometimes the lunches between games are fun, especially when, only one board is done, so the whole board goes to get lunch together, but there may be some bad blood, some tension. Those can be kind of funny, but for the most part, people really brush it off, I think. I think most people in the hobby do a pretty good job of leaving what happened on the board, at least from what I've seen.
Well, I think you're right, because if they don't, they really don't stick around in the hobby very long. It's, you can't not leave it on the board and stick around.
Yeah.
Well, we've already mentioned that you started, your face-to-face career, just at the 2021 DibCon. So it wasn't that long ago. There may be some people out there watching this who are a little apprehensive about going to a face-to-face tournament. They may not know everyone. They may not know anyone. I mean, tell us something that would help that person be a little less apprehensive about trying it.
I don't know what to say to encourage people to go, except that they're really fun. And if you have the chance, if you have the time and the opportunity, and you can get yourself there, I mean, they're a really good time. And I don't know. I mean, I've met, there's just great people in the hobby. I don't know. The game is certainly different. Playing, I have never had the opportunity to play a board game of diplomacy in person that wasn't a part of a tournament. Or I think I had a one-off at a Weasel Moot game, but I don't play with my friends in real life. So it's a really unique experience for me in that sense. And, if you're somebody like me whose friends won't play diplomacy with you because they think it's gonna turn you against them and you're gonna be lying and manipulating, finding your own people at these tournaments is really a lot of fun. Yeah, the environment is just, it's pretty unique, and God, it's just a lot of fun. It's really just a lot of fun. I mean, this is the first time that I've won one of these face-to-face events, and I have had fun and have not regretted going to any of them. So,
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Well, you are only the third woman to ever win DibCon. There was Joyce Singer back in the mid '80s, and then there was Tanya Gill 2 years ago.
Yeah,
and I just think that's worthy of comment. How important do you think it is to our hobby, particularly the hobby of today, that you and Tanya and others have reached this level of success in a hobby that has been, overwhelmingly dominated or played by male players instead?
I think it's important because, well, I mean, people want representation in the things that they're interested in. They want to see themselves reflected at them. And, the more diversity you have in winners and players, the better. I think that that's true in general. I think, yeah, it's just, I mean, Tanya's an excellent player. I've been pretty successful. I don't think anybody's underestimating us. I don't think that really comes into it.
No.
And I don't think that anyone would, but for the most part, I guess I can't speak for everyone, but I really think that it's important to have visible people of, different genders, races, everything, minorities represented is just important. I don't know. I don't know about winning. I can't really be get more women to win, although we should, but I should win, so I don't know.
Yeah. It's not more women, just specific women,
specifically me.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say that it's the most important thing in the world. The most important thing is it's Katie Gray, and she won the tournament, and that's awesome. But it is a thing that I think is quite a good development to have, not just you winning this particular tournament, but lots of female players having lots of success in the last 2 or 3 years, I would argue, is such a good thing for the hobby.
Yeah. I think it's making progress. I mean, I wasn't here, more than 5 years ago, so hasn't changed very much in my time here. But I imagine for some of us, there's been a lot of change. Yeah.
Yes, I have. This is a tremendous change, and I'm here to tell you it is a really good change. What could the hobby do to be more inclusive, do you think?
I think this is a really hard question. There are things that individual people can do to be welcoming, but I think that that's not very realistic in actually changing things. I think in order to to sort of get real change and really increase diversity, you need systematic or like actions that you can take. And I don't know a lot about that, but I am part of a diversity group or sort of just like a group that's meeting to talk about diversity in the hobby and trying to get that on board. And Jamal, actually, world champion Jamal, is heading that. And this is something that he does in his real life. He's a literal professional. And so we're kind of talking about ideas to try to come up with some things that could help in general. I mean, I think if you took a poll, almost exclusively, everyone in this hobby would say that they want it to be a welcoming space. They want people to feel like they're accepted and like they belong. And I think it can be hard sometimes to put those sort of feelings into a like a physical plan, if that makes any sense. So I don't know a lot about that. I know that at Cascadia at DipCon, Chris Brand had us write name tags with our pronouns on them. And I think that's a really great step. I mean, it takes 3 seconds to write your pronouns. And if it helps anyone feel more comfortable, then why not? Like, I think it's a great, easy thing to do. So I'm hoping that Jamal, our fearless leader, could come up with some, little steps like that to help. And yeah, maybe they'll have a lasting impact. And I think that'd be really great.
Certainly would. All right. Well, I think you and I are actually going to be the color commentators for this year's DBN Invitational Top Board later in February. Are you looking forward to this as much as I am?
I am. This is a great event to watch, to commentate. I didn't enjoy playing in it because it was personally too stressful for me. I'm an anxious bundle of nerves when I play, but I'm so excited to watch. I think the games are going to be really exciting. I mean, the format where every board's a top board, it's going to be great. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I certainly think that format change has been quite positive. All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Want to make any predictions about? I mean, there's 28 players that are going to start, next weekend in the preliminary rounds. So which 7 are going to make it to the top board?
Come 7? On. I have to list 7.
You don't have to, but list as many as you want. People that you think stand a good chance. By the time people watch this, it will already. We're not going to affect anything here. So
I don't know. I think Brandon's going to struggle. I don't think the Fogel's going to get him there. His classic 11-11-11 shared. He's not going to make it with that. No, I don't know.
Not in this format, you won't do it.
No, I think Brandon has a great chance. If I ever see a top board with Brandon on it, I would feel pretty comfortable betting on him. I don't know. I really didn't look that closely. I could pull up a list, but I haven't done that, and I don't want to take up our time.
Well, no, I don't. You don't need to necessarily, but I'll bring up some people that have had a lot of impetus or a lot of momentum coming in. Bradley Grace, I think, would be an example of somebody who's had a lot of success during the second half of the season, in particular, second half of the diplomacy season. You've played with Bradley virtually or not?
I've not played with Bradley.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever played with Bradley.
Yeah.
I mean, I know his name, obviously. He was winning, did he win Tour Britain, or he almost won?
I believe so.
He won Tour Britain, yeah.
I believe he did. He also won the inaugural Olympus extended deadline tournament.
Okay. Oh, another extended deadline player. Go Bradley.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is your background. I also think you can't count out like a Saren Kwok, who had quite a good performance in the Summer Classic.
You can't ever count out.
And has so much experience, in these major events. Saren does.
Yeah. Yeah, she's
of course Nicolas Taillet. I mean.
Oh yeah, Nicolas.
I don't want to just pick people who have been on top boards in the past for the DBNI, but there's a lot of experience out of this field of 28. It's going to be so much fun to see who does emerge.
It is, and playing a top board is a really different experience. I mean, people just have different mindsets going in. So the more experience you have on them, I think the better prepared you are to play in this one. But
yeah, I think that's right. All right, Katie, final thoughts for our audience. You are here as the reigning North American champ. Give us some pointers, give us some ideas of what it feels like, anything you want to say to our audience about this experience or about diplomacy in general.
I don't know. It's kind of surreal. I mean, when I first started playing, I didn't imagine I would ever travel to go play in person, let alone actually win one. I don't know. It's pretty surreal, but it's fun, and I'll give the cliche advice of play your game, believe in yourself. You know, there are a lot of ways to play diplomacy. And trying to change the way you play to match how you think it should be played, at least in my experience, does not work. So play your game, believe in yourself, travel, go. If you can make it, go. That's all I got.
Well, no, that's a good point. And in your case in particular, right, I have seen you try to do things that were a little bit outside your lane in big events, and you yourself have thought that was a mistake, right?
Absolutely. The first top board I was ever on was DBNI 2 years ago. And it was a disaster. I was floundering. I was stressed. I was flip-flopping. It was I just thought I had to like play like a shark, like a balance of power player. Like, it was bad.
Yeah, you didn't play a Katie Gray game.
No. And Jason Massbaum won. That's what happens.
So that you're the person we can blame for that.
You can blame me. Yeah, sure. And also the other 5 people. And Jason, give him props too. He won.
Well, of course, give him props. Katie, it's so great to have you back on the show. It's great to see you achieve some well-earned success. I mean, you didn't look into this victory. There was a lot of really good play going on there, a lot of good alliance maintenance, relationship building, and relationship maintenance in those games. And so I say hats off to you, and can't wait to see you win your next one.
Thank you, David.
And now let's check in with another recent winner. Nicholas Spencer, a.k.a. Bob the Builder. He's a college student in Michigan who was just named the Hobby Ambassador of the Year by the Briefing Weekly newsletter. This award is given for service to the diplomacy hobby in general, as voted on by the subscribers to the Briefing. Nicholas won the award largely due to his formation of the Olympus Diplomacy community on Discord, which holds highly competitive online tournaments for players primarily on the Backstabber website. Well, hey, Nicholas, welcome back to Deadline.
It's good to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. You came on some time ago, right after Olympus had first gotten started. But for those who might have missed that episode, give us your diplomacy origin story, please.
Yes, of course. So I have always loved war strategy games. I would play with my brother, play with a few friends. And when the pandemic came around, I was fundamentally bored. So I was looking up some YouTube videos for Axis and Allies. And because of the YouTube algorithm, I stumbled upon this random video by some random person called Captain Meme. Do you know who he is? I don't.
I choose to recognize the non-existence of such a thing. But you keep going.
Which was 7 hours long regarding the game of diplomacy. Now, until then, I've heard of the game of diplomacy, being a wargamer. The only issue is that I never really properly played it until then, because although I was provided the board, with it only being a 7-player game, I could never necessarily get a proper face-to-face game going.
Right.
Between the few friends I did have, family members, and mainly my brother, who I would play with. So 1v1 in diplomacy is not fun. But I did not know there was an online component. So after watching this video, Media Wars actually, and seeing the online game, and just liking war strategy games, I looked into Backstabber, and I started playing a bit on Backstabber. And that's when I sort of got hooked, because it was the time of the pandemic. Everyone was home, stuck on their computers. At least I was doing high school on my computer, and I was just fundamentally bored. So,
all right. Now, you said you got hooked. What about diplomacy got the hook in you?
I'd say it's just the simplicity of the game, yet the complexity at the same time. Sort of like chess, except on a diplomatic element. Whereas chess is more tactical in nature. So I think there are more possible chess games than there are molecules in the universe. The same idea with diplomacy. It's fundamentally just boils down to the most basic elements. You have 2 different units. You have a fleet. You have an army, and you have territories with supply centers and territories without. You capture supply centers. You get more units. 18 supply centers wins the game. It's a very simple game, yet the underlying components it is there. And it's a game also that has a very, those that like it really, really like it a lot and are extremely passionate about it, I've found. And it's a community whereby it's easy to get along with others and just, I don't know, share a common interest. And it does teach you how to communicate and socialize with others.
It does.
So,
yeah, it's actually got a lot of benefits in that sense. Do
yeah.
you have a favorite country to play or a favorite alliance to play in diplomacy?
Now, I know a lot of people really are confused whenever I'm. Honestly, for me, it's Russia. It's always been Russia. I don't know why. Possibly because I got my first proper strategic sense in the game of Russia, having watched the Meteor Wars game, and for some reason, Backstabber supposedly randomizes nations in games, but usually, like, for example, half my games ever on Backstabber have been in playing Russia, and I've just fundamentally loved playing Russia. And
maybe you just crave warm water ports, or irrationally being afraid of encircled, and
Yeah.
have a megalomaniac appetite for imperial expansion. Maybe that's what it is.
Yes, indeed, and possibly yes. And if I'm given a situation on a top board, I've not yet played a proper top board yet. That's something I'm striving to do. But if I'm given a situation and I am given first pick, there is a hefty chance I may choose Russia. I just love the nation a lot.
Man, you do what you want. Don't let anybody tell you you got to do it some other way. You do you, man. That's the way I look at it. All right, let's go on to your award, which is pretty cool. Congratulations. You're the Ambassador of the Year. Thanks for all your hard work with Olympus. So that begs the question, what possessed you to start Olympus? It's a big deal and a big job. What possessed you to do that?
I was mentioning those regarding my origin story and the idea that I really like connecting with other people who are so passionate about a game. It was that passion that I was seeing reverberating through some of my Backstabber games that I just hooked onto. But unfortunately, in those games I played, not everyone was necessarily, well, active. And reliability was definitely a lacking component in many online play. So I started to host games on behalf of other people who were equally passionate about it, that had that reliability sort of factor into it. Now, when I started this, I did not realize the vast Discord community you guys already had. Otherwise, I probably would have never started this in the first place and would have just joined said community. But so we started from there and started hosting Backstabber games, reliability component. Even we hosted one or two tournaments on Backstabber using Backstabber as a form of communication between one another. Because although it doesn't have a forum, the GM is still able to communicate with players. So I was able to communicate and organize with other players. And then I ran into another guy called Rain Man who was doing a very similar thing. And we merged forces. And then we learned of the wider Discord world, and wanting a more centralized platform to do what we were doing on, we moved to Discord. So that's the short story of it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, tell us what kind of games or tournaments or events does Olympus run on your server?
We primarily deal with extended deadline and primarily also deal with Backstabber. Sooner or later, I do want to sort of expand beyond that, but it's a little hard, ranging from first the play diplomacy hack to like web diplomacy being very, very anti-GM friendly. Let's just say we tried hosting actually a chaos game on web diplomacy, and that was very hard to do. So we had to revert to Discord. But
For those in the audience that don't know, Chaos is a variant where it's 34 different players
on the classic map, and
on
it's
the classic map, one player per supply center. I actually played a face-to-face game of that one time, believe it or not, at some convention. It was completely insane, and we never finished it.
you played Chaos at a face-to-face event.
Correct. There were 34 people.
My God.
We only got a few turns into it, and it just turned into a complete mess, and so it quit. Anyway, I interrupted you for no good reason. We were talking about the events that you do on your server. You had a main extended deadline tournament that you had, right?
Yeah, we have a main event, that being the Olympus Season 1, Season 2. We've already hosted one such tournament, which was won by Bradley Grayson, Season 1, and now we're currently in Season 2 in the semifinals. And honestly, it's a very, very high quality elite tournament, if I may say so myself.
You mean in the terms of the quality of the players?
In terms of the quality of the players, yes.
Yeah.
But we host other events and been sort of expanding. Like recently, we have gotten a new moderator who is very into variants. So he's been hosting a lot of variants there. We've hosted a gunboat tournament. We're planning on hosting Season 2 of our gunboat tournament. We've hosted.
Who won Season 1 of your gunboat tournament? Let's do some name dropping.
Riaz Virani, actually.
Oh man. That's surprising. Riaz can't play gunboat. How did he win?
By not being able to play gunboat and suddenly one day learning it. I don't know.
As we say in the country, a blind squirrel can find a nut here and there. All right. Well, so you said Season 2 of the main event is going on right now in the semifinals.
Yes, indeed. So that's actually turning into a spectacular event, much better than I hoped, and it's honestly quite brilliant. Just the players and the dynamics that has arisen, and it's Season 1 taught me a lot that I had to modify for Season 2. So I'm very happy with how that's turning out. But as said, we're trying to expand beyond extended deadline. Like I have made a promise to the Blitz community that I will host a Blitz tournament on their behalf as sort of a on behalf of Olympus, but I haven't yet gotten around to that. I've just been too busy. But we do.
Well, let's be clear, Nicholas. You were a freshman in college, right?
Yes, I have tried to make that clear.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I mean, you got other stuff going on. You can't do everything. Right?
Yeah, I think the average.
Speaking of you not doing everything, who else helps you with Olympus? Let's do some other kudos here to other people that help.
So, I mainly have 4 other people who help me, and they are Elisha, Impolo, Jackson, and Arabant. That's my moderator team. We're still taking signups actually for moderators. If you have an idea and want to expand upon it, we'd be happy to take you on because I can't handle everything myself. And they're all great in their own way. Like Elisha, she took over like one of the main growth centers for Olympus is this idea that we host random games on Backstabber, drawing from more players in the random Backstabber community who don't know the broader Discord world. So she's been taking that on. Jackson, he's the guy I mentioned who's liking the variants as well as in Polo. Ervant is also bringing in new ideas. We have several ideas of new tournaments and just new events we want to host on Olympus. So definitely stay tuned. But once I just find enough time to do that.
Well, I will say this as somebody who's, of course, been around the block a few times. Pace yourself. You don't have to do everything at one time. Pace yourself because we need you to stick around, not just be here for a couple of years and go bam and.
Yeah, I must admit I learned that very early on. Like I don't know, I burned myself out a bit too early in my Olympus adventure. I don't know what exactly triggered it, but I went a little too crazy for even myself, and I had to take a break for like a month. So I've sort of learned my limit, and I do agree I need to pace myself. So I've not been going nearly as fast as I was before, but I'm still going strong.
I'm glad to hear it. All right, so if someone wants to get involved right now, what do they do? Do they just have to navigate their way into your Discord? We're going to put a link to your Discord server in the show notes of the show, but otherwise, how do they find you on Backstabber, for example?
Well, on Backstabber, you have to have a certain reliability rating in order to join our games. And then once you're in a game, we post a link for you to join. Or you can just find the Discord server through other means. Like if you're on the Discord server and you play the game, we would consider you reliable enough to necessarily play in any game of your choosing, provided you actually submit moves. Now I must admit, that's a little hypocritical of me as of right now, because recently I've been playing a lot of Gunboat, and unfortunately I've been missing a lot of moves because of real life. So I get it. Real life does come in, but if you want to get involved, just do what you feel like or want to do. There are many great ways to play, be it over several months extended deadline, be it very, very fast 1.5 hour game, Blitz, be it a virtual game. You talk to other players over screen like you and I are doing right now, David. Virtual. There are so many ways to play, and part of the goal of Olympus is hopefully to, although we're primarily extended deadline, help connect new players to these other platforms.
Well, how about you just message me, the most recent link, and I'll put it into the show notes of this show, and that's the way we'll make that as a point of entry for all those diplomacy migrants out there who would like to go to Olympus. So
thank you.
All right, so let's go to a different subject. You are younger than most hobby organizers. I'm just saying. As we said, you're a freshman in college. Now, I'm not thinking that's really a major problem. I was 21 when I started DixieCon. All right, so I was young too. So it can be done. But do you think this has posed any particular challenges for you being as young as you are in relation to maybe some of the other, older hobby organizers?
Not really. Honestly, not really. Maybe I'm a bit too energetic for a few of them. Like they just wonder. I've had one or two comments before as to them wondering why I'm just going at 100 million miles per hour, and I just need to calm down and slow down because I'm going too fast for them. And that's, I guess, the main thing.
You could just tell people like that, "Hey, old man, stop being slow as molasses."
No, that's not what I mean. Being younger, I just have a lot of energy I just want to use. And for some reason, I decided to use it on this hobby.
We're glad you did.
Become an old man, I'm most certainly not going to be this energetic, but I guess that's...
You don't know that.
Difference.
No, you don't know. You don't know. You could still be energetic. If there's some younger players out there, younger people who have been, big time diplomacy fans, and we have some really young ones. The really young person won the European Diplomacy Championship this year. So we have some really young players out there, or people that might be interested in hobby organizing or hobby projects. If they have an idea, what would you say to them about how easy it is to get things done, from a younger point of view?
Go ahead and execute it. I mean, seriously. Like, I started this adventure. When did I start this? I started when I was 16 or 17. I'm tracing all the way back before I even founded the Discord. And
all the way back like 3 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a long time back.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, case in point, in 3 years, I've gone from more or less a nobody to helping found this community, and now I'm very honored for winning this award. So, I mean, if you just even outside of diplomacy, if you just grasp onto some idea, some huge ambitious project you necessarily want to take on, go on with it with stride. It's not going to resolve itself. It's not going to fix itself. And for people who want to specifically do it for diplomacy, by all means, like, contact me. I'll help you around. And I really want new, younger people to start promoting ideas, new ideas in Olympus. Hence my new moderator team. And like, for example, I'm going to go back to one of them, Jackson, for example. He's, I think, 14, and he's creating the largest, craziest variants I've ever seen. I mean, he just recently created a 23 player ancient Greece map with and Polo, and I think he's currently running 5 different variants. And this is not like running in the idea that he's using an adjudicator. No, he's using paint.net and self-adjudicating at home, manually entering orders into his computer unit by unit by unit, which I don't understand how that guy's doing it, but he is making an impact upon the variant community. And we need more people like that, more people that want to do something just new and different and want to go ahead and take stride with their ideas. For Jackson, it's variants. For other people, I don't know what it could be.
Hey, Alexander the Great was a youngin, so we've got that going for us.
By age 23, something like that.
I don't know, but he was a youngin. So that's good. All right, now I want you to tell me something. And well, first of all, let me ask you this question. What are your plans for Olympus moving forward? I'm sure you have some.
Yes, I definitely have some. As to what they are exactly, I haven't fully hammered out in details. Like, for example, the most immediate plans are to host our coming second season of Gunboat and planning for season 3, having some variant projects planned, and also I'm planning out the new Blitz diplomacy tournament, which I promise is coming. I promise to those people who've been waiting for a while. Sorry, I will get to it. But beyond that, I hope that Olympus can become I've always wanted this, but I haven't yet succeeded. Like this central hub for which other people can find necessarily other discords, other specific diplomacy-based hobbies. And although we sort of have done that with Backstabber, we only necessarily have done it through Backstabber. Like, I want to expand to web diplomacy, to play diplomacy, and figure out how those sites work, because I really don't like those sites personally. I want to maybe, like, recently I put out a poll wondering if people would be interested in Olympus hosting virtual games. I have ideas as to how far we'll go with them. Time will tell, but in the immediate future, those 4 original tournaments, the Blitz tournament, Gunboat tournament, season 3, and some variants we have planned, along with 1 or 2 other things, which I'll keep a surprise. Though that's the immediate planning.
Well, that sounds like a bunch of good plans. It sounds like you've got a lot going on. I want to talk to you briefly about the issue of safety, though. I need you to assure me that Olympus is and always will be a conch-free zone. It's just a matter of common decency and safety. Can you tell me that?
You're asking the most incorrect question you can, David Hood.
There is no Jordan Connors on Olympus, am I right?
There's no David Hood on Olympus.
Well, that's a good point you're making, actually. That's a good point.
As to why Mr. Hood is not on Olympus, I don't know, but probably because, indeed, Mr. Connors is actually thriving on our platform. Your old commentating media rival he is, and with his charm, he's actually succeeding very well. Now, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but maybe they're.
I'm over here feeling like NATO, and you're Turkey, and you're playing footsie with the Russians. I don't understand. I thought you were on the correct team for freedom and good, and you are playing footsie with pure unmitigated evil. So I don't know how I can really promote Olympus under those circumstances. All right,
Let's see with the Italians, but
well, that's a good point. All right, let me move to a more serious point, because I don't mean any of that, as Jordan Connors knows. I had the pleasure of meeting you in Chapel Hill at last year's DipCon. Was that your first experience with face-to-face tournament play?
Yes, and it indeed was, and that was a phenomenal event. For those of you who do not know, David Hood hosts a tournament every year in the summer at Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Very easy to gain access. It's in the University of North Carolina area, and it's quite a fabulous event. And there's more than just diplomacy there. I mean, I found myself playing board game after board game and just communicating and talking to plenty of new, interesting, and fun people that I would have never necessarily met if it hadn't been through the diplomacy community. So I highly encourage y'all to join the tournament. I hopefully will make it again this year.
That'd be great. But let me be clear about something. I think that a lot of what you just said applies to a lot of different diplomacy tournaments. You just haven't been to them yet.
Yes, yeah, that is true. But I guess you get this benefit of me being biased towards your
tournament. That's fine. But let me ask you this. Was the experience what you expected coming into this as a face-to-face novice? Was it what you expected, or was it different from what you expected?
I'm not too sure what I expected. I honestly don't know. It was definitely a unique experience. Maybe I expected to perform a little better on the boards, given how I do have given my track record online, but I actually did horribly. But that's besides the point. Going into it, I honestly don't know what I expected, but I most certainly did not expect just how kind and just open necessarily everyone was. And I truly mean that. Like, random people I previously never knew were just hitching me rides from the airport and back, taking me out to dinner, just cracking jokes one another, while at the same time keeping their knives sharp in order to stab me in the back.
Yeah, so it's really true. Some of the best people you will ever know, and you can end up with some of your best friends ever. You just can't trust them with Belgium. That's what you got to look out for. But otherwise, they're absolutely outstanding people.
Absolutely agreed. I mean, everyone knows the perfect Fogel is an 11-11-11 without anyone controlling Belgium. So,
well, that would be good, actually. All right, for those who may not have ever played extended deadline events before, in other words, let's turn this around a little bit. Tell them tell these people why they should try something like Olympus. If they're only used to face-to-face or virtual events, why should they try something like the Olympus main event season 3, for example?
I'd consider this question as because of time. Like the difference between, for example, a virtual and a face-to-face event versus an extended deadline event is timing. Do you have enough time necessarily to commit yourself to 6 to 12 hours in one sitting to necessarily do a face-to-face event or virtual event? If not, then extended deadline may be for you, because you only need to spend as much time as you won't necessarily need per day. And although you play every day, you decide how much time every day you want to talk. If you don't want to talk to anyone, just submit moves and be done with it. I mean, it's quite a new way of communicating with others. And people are afraid because of this idea that it's extended deadline taking several months to play, that it is a huge time commitment. I actually would like to counter that argument. And although I know some extended deadline players are absolutely crazy in the amount of press they send to one another.
Greg Matthews. Greg Matthews. I'm sorry. Keep going.
You don't need to spend that much time doing so. You can just spend the amount of time you wish, and you don't need to necessarily wait for the next virtual or face-to-face event that is coming up, and can necessarily play with whoever you want automatically on the spot. So
yeah, that's really true. All right, switch that around a little bit. You got people who are only extended deadline players. Why should they think about stretching a little bit and trying a virtual event or a face-to-face tournament?
For the same exact reason, except the flip version. I mean, we're all the people who play diplomacy, we're all hobbyists. We are all board gamers. Are we saying suddenly we don't have 6 hours in our life to block off during some weekend or another to play a virtual event in order to put a face to necessarily people perhaps you were talking to for months on end in the extended deadline community, if you play with them in the extended deadline community or not? No, I mean, that's just fundamentally a lie. I understand time commitments, and honestly, I can't make every virtual or face-to-face event. I mean, I was only to one face-to-face event this year and only particularly participated in one virtual tournament, but still I found time and I was able to really connect with people in a brand new way possible. I never thought was, as said, possible in this community, because all I ever knew was waiting for the next DM from another person in Discord and not necessarily genuinely talking to a person like you and I are doing right now. And although, sure, it's still a screen, at least you're connecting a face to that screen.
It's true. Yeah, that's very true. All right, final thoughts for our audience, Nicholas. You've said a lot of great things for our audience to hear. I think anything you want to give us as a parting shot?
I don't know. Just,
what do you mean you don't know? I told you this question was coming. So
I knew this question was coming, but I fundamentally don't know. I mean, just enjoy yourself in necessarily playing the game, and also don't necessarily take things too personal, especially for new people, because that was one of the things that turned me away originally when I was stabbed in the back by, I think it was my brother, and we got into a fierce argument over it. That was before I started playing online. And honestly, it is truly a unique game that I think people do not give the chance it needs. I didn't give the chance it necessarily needs. And as said, it was just the YouTube algorithm suggesting to me a random video that brought me back into the hobby to begin with. Because when I was given the board game as a birthday present one random day, I said I played it, but then I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but then put it in my closet and never was planning to think about it again. I honestly believe that this community, if properly given the chance, if this game is properly given the chance, especially with the online component now, since before the board game itself was so hard to organize with 7 strict players, but in the online world it's not, can expand to reaches that would surprise even us huge hobbyists. Like although I don't, this may be ambitious, but I think one day diplomacy could be as popular, especially because of the online aspect, as like online Risk or something. Not as popular as chess, I don't believe, but I do believe, though, it has been expanding in ways we've not seen before, with new people just coming on. Like, I'm one of those new people that came on as a result of the pandemic, and I've seen a lot of new faces and a lot of people from younger generations who are clinging on to what I consider a gem of a board game, which is why until now I've taken this insane route with Olympus. And I just fundamentally believe in this game, and that may sound cringy a bit.
No, we can tell. We can tell you're a big booster, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you're joining the rest of us.
Yes, and although in many ways I will never forgive you guys for it, in many ways I also can never express my thanks enough for it, because it's truly taught me things beyond just necessarily game. Like it's not just a game. Like, I can see why people like John F. Kennedy loved it. Like, I can see why top lawyers play this game. I can see why traders play this game. I see what their drive is, and it should be taught in schools. I do believe, like, it teaches you a lot about geography, tactics, how to talk to people, how to influence people, etc.
Yep.
Something that today's games like kill as many zombies as you can before they enter the room does not give us anymore.
No, it's there's nothing wrong with having fun, but the educational outcomes and the outcomes for your developing yourself as a person, you can't get that in a shoot 'em up game.
Absolutely.
Nicholas, so much good stuff from you today, and I really wanted to say thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, David.
And again, congratulations on being the ambassador of the year for the season for the year of 2023.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being on.
Thanks to all of you watching at home. We hope you have enjoyed this broadcast of Deadline. If you have news, ideas for features, or feedback of any kind, please feel free to send us an email to info@diplobn.com, or you can drop me a line directly at davidhood@dixiecon.com. To review all of our broadcast offerings, visit our website at www.diplobn.com. This is David Hood signing off. I wish you brightness and bliss and, of course, Belgium.